Hey everyone, Theo here. In today's video, I'm reviewing the Renaisser 530 digital stylus that's made for Microsoft Surface devices. In other words, this is an alternative to the Microsoft Surface Pen, and in this video, I will be comparing this with the original Surface Pen as well as the Microsoft Slim Pen 2. First of all, a disclaimer, this is a review unit provided by the company, and this pen actually came with the Renaisser Pelican K8 wireless keyboard that's made for the Surface Pro 8. I have already reviewed that wireless keyboard. If you're interested to find out how it works, just check out the link that I have for you in the video description below. Today we will focus on the drawing performance of this pen. So this is priced at US $39 at the time of this review, and the original Microsoft Surface Pen is US $99. The Slim Pen 2 is US $129. So in terms of value for money, this is less than half the price of the Surface Pen, and the performance is actually in between the Surface Pen and the Slim Pen 2. This pen supports Microsoft Pen Protocol 2, so it supports slightly over 4,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. It has tilt sensitivity and palm rejection. This is battery powered by a built-in battery, and you can charge it with the USB-C cable provided. There is one eraser at the back, two side buttons here, the power light indicator, and the overall build quality is very solid because this pen is made with metal, and I really like the matte textured surface on it. It's almost cylindrical in shape except for this flat side here, which you can use to attach to selected models of Surface Pro tablets. Magnets on the pen are quite strong. Now this pen is not designed to attach to the side of the Surface Pro 8 because the magnets on this tablet are not aligned with the pen. So the pen is not going to attach securely, and also the USB-C ports are by the side here. When you put the pen here, it's going to block the charging or USB-C ports. Pen tip on the Renaisser pen is rubberized, just like the pen tip on the Microsoft Surface Pen. The Slim Pen 2 has a plastic hard tip. Now the pen tips for the Renaisser pen and the Surface Pen are interchangeable. Let's test the initial activation force. This is the Microsoft Slim Pen 2, and I can draw the thin lines quite easily. The lines are quite straight, but I still see slight diagonal wobble. Let's change or switch to the older Surface Pen. I'm going to switch to a different color. Initial activation force with this older Surface Pen is higher. Let me try to draw this with very minimal pressure. It's not as easy to draw thin lines compared to the Slim Pen 2, but the main issue here is there is noticeably more diagonal line wobble. And lastly, let's switch over to the Renaisser 530. Again, let me try and draw the lines with minimal pressure. Initial activation force seems to be between Slim Pen 2 and the older Surface Pen, so I can still draw thin lines quite easily. However, as you can see, there is also diagonal line wobble. Noticeable diagonal line wobble. Let's look at the line transition. This is also to test the initial activation force. So this is how thick the pen really is and how thin the lines can get. So that's the Microsoft Slim Pen 2. Next, we'll test the older Surface Pen. Notice the lines are thicker, the thinner lines are thicker. And when I try to draw the thinner lines again, it's very difficult to make the lines thinner. And also there is again the diagonal line wobble. So that's the older Surface Pen. Lastly, let's test the Renaisser 530. Initial activation force is slightly better, but again, once you've drawn the thicker lines, it's not as easy to go back to drawing the thinner lines. And now let's see how the lines taper. This is the slim pen tool. The lines are not able to taper smoothly and sharply, so this is actually quite abrupt. Let's switch over to the older Surface Pen. Same thing, the lines are not able to taper smoothly and sharply. Lastly, we have the Renaisser 530. Again, the lines are not able to taper smoothly and sharply. How the lines taper will also depend on the apps you use. So this app is Affinity Photo. And the lines can taper slightly better, but the taper is still quite abrupt. This is the older Surface Pen. Again, the lines taper quite abruptly. And lastly, the Renaisser. So here you can see there is taper, but it's still quite abrupt. I can still draw diagonal lines quite easily. So this is actually pretty good performance. So when I was testing the diagonal lines earlier, yes, I can see the wobble, but when you're actually drawing, the wobble it's not there. I did not experience any issues when drawing this with the Renaisser pen. The performance is quite consistent, quite predictable. And the texture of the pen tip on the glass, it's quite smooth, but it's not slippery, which is great. Let's draw some more diagonal lines here. Yep, works fine. This sketch was drawn with Affinity Photo. Now this pen, it's great for taking notes. Next, let's test the tilt sensitivity of these three pens. This is the slim pen tool, and we can get thin and broad strokes by tilting the pen at an angle. Next, we have the older Surface Pen. It's not as easy to get the broad strokes. I'm actually tilting the pen quite low. Yep, it's not easy to get tilt to work with this pen. And lastly, the Raphael 530. Okay, it has the same problem with that you see with the Surface Pen, the older Surface Pen. It's not easy to draw those broad strokes. And also, if you look at the line variation, you can get the thinner line and the very broad strokes more easily with the slim pen tool. But with the older Surface Pen and the Raphael 530, the variation in terms of thickness, it's not as wide compared to what you can get with the slim pen tool. The app I'm using here is Concepts. I actually like to use tilt brushes to color big areas, but I can't do that with the Renaisser Raphael 530. So I either have to color or fill the shapes more slowly, or switch to a bigger brush manually by changing the brush size. So that is not as convenient compared to being able to tilt the brush to get those broad strokes. But in terms of drawing, in terms of line art, I don't have any issues when it comes to drawing with this pen. I think it works great for drawing. You just have to take note that there are some issues with tilt sensitivity. The last thing I want to talk about is battery life. Charging the pen for 15 minutes will give you 70 hours of use, and charging this for 1 hour will give you 100 hours of use. So the battery life for this pen is pretty good. Right, to conclude, this pen has good drawing and note-taking performance. Sure, there is slight diagonal line wobble during the test, but while I was drawing, I did not experience any issues or problems with diagonal line wobble or jitter. The main downside for this pen is tilt sensitivity doesn't work that well. Oh, by the way, this is an active stylus, so it has pretty good palm rejection depending on the app you use. So with concepts, when I draw with my finger, it doesn't do anything except pan around. And when I place my palm on the display, I will not introduce any stray strokes. So palm rejection works great. In terms of value for money, the Renaisser Raphael 530 does provide good value for money, and this is a pen I can recommend for drawing. Just note the limitations with tilt sensitivity.